I'm here with Andy Elkins. Andy had graduated from South Point in 2020. Andy was in our humanities program. Andy was in National Honor Society. Andy played basketball for us at South Point. He ran track for us at South Point and also did cross country and was co-captain of the cross country team his senior year. So welcome, Andy Elkins, class of 2020. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing today?
Doing well, doing well. Can you tell us, I gave you the intro about South Point, but can you tell us the impact that South Point made on you, either personally, academically, professionally? What types of impacts did South Point make on you?
It definitely helped smooth my transition to college greatly. I felt very prepared for the academic workload that was given to me at Arizona State, and I feel like I wouldn't have been prepared for that type of workload had I not gone to South Point. So I'm very grateful for the education that I received at South Point. I went to Arizona State University, and I was a finance major with a minor in applied business data analytics.
Tell us about how when you were a student at South Point and you were trying to figure out where to go to college, what was that decision-making process like for you? And then after that, talk about like your major, how you picked your major and did you change your major, all that. So harken back to your senior year at South Point. What were you thinking when you were deciding where to go to college?
Obviously, there was a lot of colleges that I was looking at, but ultimately I chose ASU after I toured. I fell in love. I think touring is a very important aspect of when you're choosing your colleges because, you can get a pamphlet and it'll show you all these cool things, but it's a lot better for you to actually go and visit that specific school to see for yourself. And I feel if I didn't go in person to ASU, I don't know if I would have ultimately chose them and I could have gone a completely different route college-wise, and I would have never known how great I would have loved to go into ASU. So just ultimately touring helped really decide that's exactly where I want to go. And when it came to deciding my major, I went in as an econ major. I really enjoyed Mr. Mount's economics class when I was at South Point. So I decided to go in as an econ major when I went to ASU, but ultimately found that at a higher level, I wasn't enjoying it as much as I thought I would. So I decided to make the switch to finance just because they're similar yet different. And ultimately I loved finance and wouldn't want it any other way.
Okay. So tell us about the company, because now you're out of college for over a year. Tell us about the company you work for and what you do there.
So I work for Blue Cross Blue Shield of Arizona. They're one of the largest health insurance providers in Arizona, and I'm a financial accountant.
Okay. So what does your day look like from the time you start till the time you finish? Like, what do you do as an accountant? So I think we can all kind of guess and imagine, but what do you do specifically?
Yeah. So specifically, this week actually is one of our busiest weeks. It's called month end. So we're basically taking all of our reports that we get, for example, we were reconciling August. So we're taking all of our August data and we're basically just making sure that all of our journal entries are up to date. We are posting everything correctly. Just basically saying, like, hypothetically saying, we're just showing the proof of where our data is coming from. So like, for example, maybe in one of our accounts, we have something saying that, it's showing that we have $100 in there. So this week we're basically just giving all the support as to where this $100 is coming from, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. You have to make sure all the money that's there is accurate, but it's accounted for.
Yes.
It's the name accounting, right? Okay, so what skills or qualities do you think are most important for success in a job like this, like being an accountant?
For sure, attention to detail. Attention to detail is crucial, especially when we're meeting these deadlines, especially this week. Our deadlines are very tight. We need to make sure that we have everything that we need submitted by certain times. So it's very important to have attention to detail. As for me, I'm typing really fast and it's very easy to misclick when you're typing for long periods of time, and you might not even realize that you misclick just because you're go. So it's very important to always just have that attention to detail to make sure that, you're not misrepresenting what's actually there. For example, like sometimes even just as simple, like when I'm typing 100, I could actually misclick and type 1,000 or 10,000. And those doesn't seem like that much, but those end up being huge red flags for us if they're incorrect. So it's very important that everything is as accurate as possible.
So now that you're a little over a year into your profession as an accountant, a financial accountant, are you happy you made that choice? And where do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years?
I am very happy with that choice. I really didn't. I kind of knew what I wanted to do in college, but I wasn't 100% sure. And ultimately, I really enjoy what I'm doing right now. I enjoyed studying that I'm currently doing right now. And where I see myself, I plan on going back to receiving my master's in accounting, and solely so I can, meet the credit requirements so I can sit for the CPA exam, the certified public accountant exam, so I could further enhance my career and become higher up in my current company that I'm working at, and also have this so I can be licensed as a CPA to help further my career in this field as an accountant. So ultimately, I hope to see myself have passed all three CPA levels by in 5 years, and hopefully further ahead in the company.
Okay. Well, I've known you for a while now, and I've seen you make a lot of goals and knock them all down. So you've been very successful. So there's no doubt in my mind you will accomplish that. So our last question, Andy, if you could give either high school version of Andy advice or just our current high school students advice, what advice would you give for students who are looking to tackle life after high school? So college, majors, careers, what advice would you have?
I remember being very stressed out on what I wanted to do in college and what I wanted to major in and what college I was specifically choosing. I remember those were very, very much high items that I was very stressed out about. So one of the things I would recommend is don't put a lot of stress on those items. It will be okay. You're not going to make every single decision correctly the first time. Sometimes you will make mistakes. Sometimes, like for me, for example, I thought I really wanted to go into economics, and so I decided to make that my major. Ultimately, that I found out in college, that's not what I wanted to do at all. But that's okay because it's a learning experience. I learned that ultimately I wasn't going to put myself through something that I didn't want to do just for the sake of that's what I first chose. I ultimately chose a different route, and for better or worse, I think it was for the better. I really enjoy what I'm doing, and I think I made the right decision from switching from economics to finance. So what I would like to say is, if you have, I would say, if you have something that you think you might like, don't be too stressed about that being the perfect choice. It might not be, but it's okay. You will it will be okay. It's all a learning curve. So that was one of the things that I wish I could tell myself back then, was not to stress the little things, essentially.
Hi, everybody. This is Julia Ritchie, and Julia graduated from South Point in 2020. So, class of 20, South Point Catholic High School. And she is the Director of Business Development for Crest Insurance, which is a local company, but also a quickly growing national company as well. Hi,
Yes. Hi,
Julia.
everybody. Hi, Mr. Chilgreen.
Can you tell us about, I know it's been 5 years since you left South Point,
Yep.
but can you tell us about the impact that South Point had on you, either academically, professionally, or personally?
South Point has had so many long-lasting impacts on me. I live in Scottsdale now, and so being in the Valley, I meet a lot of Lancers, even up here. And then on a more personal note, I've made some of my best friends at South Point. I'm still friends with some of the faculty there. It was a great place to go to school, and I'm very proud to be a South Point Lancer.
Awesome. Speaking of being in Scottsdale, and I know the answer to this question, but where did you attend college?
I attended Arizona State University.
And, looking back at when you were, a junior and senior in high school, how was that decision? Like, walk us through how you decided to go to ASU versus somewhere else.
So I love being from Arizona, and I knew I wanted to stay close-ish to home, but far enough away to be, away from my parents. And when I was looking at the Arizona schools, ASU just kind of fit what I was looking for the most. I thought, it offered so many great programs. It's such a big school. It's very diverse. And more importantly, I really love Phoenix. And I would say that was probably my driving point, was being up in the capital city, and it's just growing every single day. And there's so many different new opportunities here, especially post grad. It's a great place to be. So that really drove my decision making.
And in terms of like what you majored in, so I know you, of course,
So
finished with a major, but then tell us about that, but then also how the changes went throughout the years in terms of maybe changing your major.
for sure. So I started out going to school for business law, and I was really set in stone on being a lawyer. And then I took a couple pre-law classes, and I think I switched my second semester of my sophomore year. And I just decided I didn't want to do it anymore, which was okay. And something that I was really happy that I did, which if any of you guys change your major, which you should, I highly encourage. Nobody really sticks with their major. They say that for a reason. So if you switch, like, please by all means don't major in something that you're not passionate about, because then you'll be miserable, and what's the point of that? But if you do switch your major, I cannot recommend taking summer classes enough. That's something that I did, and so I like stayed on track, and that was really huge for me, and I was able to graduate on time. But I ended up getting my degree in business communications.
Okay. And you graduated just over a year ago, right?
Yeah, well, a year and some change.
So tell us a little bit about where you work. So you work at Crest Insurance. So tell us about that and then what you do.
Yes, so I work at Crest. We're founded out of Tucson. I'm the director of business development, and I'm pretty lucky because I'm in a unique situation. My dad is my direct boss, and so it's awesome. I get to learn from him every single day. He teaches me so many new and amazing things. But I, as the director of business development, I do a lot of networking, especially on behalf of our brand. I'm expected to be a representative and go to really cool events. Actually, I can't lie. We get to do a lot of cool things, sporting events, really cool galas, concerts. So I'm just kind of a brand ambassador. And then I do a lot of in-house wellness initiatives with our employees.
And where are your offices now? Where are Crest offices located now?
So we have offices all over Arizona. We have offices in Texas, Colorado, Wyoming, Nevada, and California. We have 19 offices.
And part of your job is you get to travel around and
I
see
get
all
to
of those offices.
For sure. So I get to travel around, just check in on people, make sure everything's going well. And then I get to bring stuff back to home base and report on what's going on out on the field. And then I also get to go to events in all of those areas too, because like I said, my job is to promote the Crest brand as much as possible. And so we're really invested in every single local community that we have an office in. So whether it's major sporting events to little league sporting events, there's all those events are events that I could be at. So yeah, no event's too big or too small.
Okay. So it sounds like marketing is a big part of what you do.
Huge part of what I do. Yes.
Okay. Walk us through the things about your job that you love, and then the things about your job that might be challenging.
So I get to travel a lot. That's really cool, like I said. And then the events that I get to attend, like I was talking about earlier, that's really, really special. And then I really love my coworkers. We noticed a couple years ago that there's a bit of a gap in the insurance industry, which is why if you don't know what you're doing, it's a great industry to get into because of the age gap. We noticed that there's a lot of older people phasing out and into retirement, and there's not a lot of young people in this space. And so a couple of years ago, we decided to start really hiring younger people and focusing all of our attention there and, harvesting that next generation. So that's been really, really cool to see. And I get to hang out. I mean, my coworkers are my friends, which I hate saying, but it's really true. So that's another huge incentive. And then like I was saying earlier, again, one of the bad things is my dad is also my direct boss. So the days that we disagree, those aren't always the best, but I usually win the arguments. And when I do, they're not too bad of days.
Good.
Yeah.
So think back to, again, when you were in high school, what is a piece of advice that you would give the high school version of Julia? Now that you've been through high school, been through college, and you're now working, what advice would you give yourself?
Foster relationships, that's really important. You never know who's going to pop back up from high school or even like middle school, and who could be a key player into the future. Network all that you can. And then my most important piece of advice, though, would be to take care of yourself at least an hour a day. You can't be the best version of yourself if you're, lacking self-care and that 1 hour of peace, whatever it may be. For me, it's working out. I think my brain works the best when I do. So just really, really, really take care of yourself, especially going into college when it's easy to form unhealthy habits.
Sure. Yeah, I think my time at Salpointe was when I first came into Salpointe, they always kind of clouded the school as being like very well-rounded. and you don't really know what that means until you kind of get into it. And so to be able to have experiences in the academic realm, athletics, if you're a musician, you can get into that. It's kind of, they do very well at a lot of different things. And so I really enjoyed my time there. And I think going into, university and even beyond that in my professional life, there's a lot of things that I look back at from Salpointe that I think put us, a step ahead when compared to other people. Even just like in early classes at the U of A, and how to present yourself in front of professors and in a large class landscape. So
But, yeah, and we were just chatting before I hit record. South Point is a special place for sure.
Yeah.
I knew that as a parent. I love it now as an employee. Can you tell us about who you work for and what you do?
Sure. So I'm a wealth management advisor with the Shear Haynes Group at Merrill Lynch here in Tucson. We're a wealth management firm. We're owned by Bank of America. It's kind of on the banking side, where you might do like your checking account for day-to-day things, and where you might get like a home loan. Whereas Merrill Lynch is more on the long-term investing side. So we typically work with um, high net worth individuals is what we call them, but it might be a bad term because it's more people than you might think. But we help them build financial plans for their future, whether that's retiring, at age 60 and having a portfolio of investments that, produces a certain amount of income each year, or if it's sending your kids to college, whatever it might be, we help them kind of build that plan and then build an investment portfolio around around those goals to help them reach those goals. So, yeah.
Okay. So it sounds like what I'll always tell people is you want to be able to make money at your job, but then you also want your money to also make you money.
That's
So
right.
you're helping people with the money making the money part.
That's right. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. And where did you go to college and what did you major in to be able
Yeah,
to?
so I went to the University of Arizona, stayed in town. I was they recently changed how this works there, but I was a pre-business student, and then my junior year, you go through an interview process at Eller, which is the business school at the U of A. And so I went into business management, and then around that time, I also interned here at Merrill Lynch and found out about a program for an additional degree that I fit into my schedule my junior and senior year, called Personal and Family Financial Planning. That's through what was called the Norton School, and that prepares you to take a certified financial planner exam, which kind of complements what I'm doing now for a job. So primarily major in business management through Eller at the U of A.
Okay. And how did you make that decision to go to U of A versus somewhere else? Like what were you thinking so for our students now that either are seniors or juniors in high school and they're trying to figure out what they're going to do next, what was
Right.
your thought process that led you to U of A?
I applied to a lot of schools. I think I applied and got into maybe 9 or 10 schools. The furthest of them being maybe like in Portland, Oregon, Portland University. And I kind of just evaluated the additional benefit of the education that I would receive at these different out of state schools versus the tuition itself, and knowing that I could go to the University of Arizona, have a good education for what I had some knowledge of what I wanted to get into, while keeping the tuition below what was even Salpointe's tuition. So I kind of like went through U of A at a very low cost, received a great education. But it is a hard decision to make, wanting as a local, born and raised in Tucson, wanting to potentially get out of Tucson. But at a certain point, you kind of have to realize that staying in state is significantly cheaper than going out of state without any major like financial aid. So that's kind of was my major driver. Also, just I grew up, Wildcats fan, and kind of had it in the back of my mind. And plus, they had a really great business school. That was probably the main drivers that I knew that if I got into Eller, I could open up some doors there. So
Gotcha. Okay, great. In terms of your job, so each day Well, basically, tell me what does your day look like? So when you show up to work, what time do you show up, and then what do you do until you leave that
Sure.
day?
Yeah. So it can be different each day, but there are some consistencies among the day to day. Right now, I'm in a business development role, so I'm part of a team that has an established book of business or clients. My primary goal as a new advisor is to bring on new clients. So I focus a lot of my day, especially early on when I first started in networking with local Tucson groups or getting to know the clients of my team, and trying to kind of create opportunities to bring on new business. So that's like a big part of what we do. Whereas someone who's more, you know, 20, 30 years into a career, they have an established book of clients and they're not doing as much what we call prospecting or trying to find new business. So, but I usually come into the office. I have my own clients now that I've been doing this about 2 years. So I spend more of my day servicing my existing clients and doing things for them. So typically take care of that in the beginning of the morning, look at clients' deposits and different things that are going on in client accounts. And then we have like a proactive service model. So we reach out to our clients on a proactive basis versus them having to call in. So I have, days of the week where I call certain clients and take care of things that need to be taken care of. And then in the afternoon, I try to, do things that gets me involved in the community, whether that's like different networking groups or, boards or, volunteering, whatever it is that can kind of just get me more exposed to the Tucson community.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you like the most about your job, and what are the challenges of your job?
So what do I like most? There's probably a bunch of things. I can't imagine doing anything else. I really enjoy what I do. Um, every day is a little bit different, and we really do get to work with many different types of people. And so one day I might be talking to, a cattle rancher that, is makes a living by buying and selling cattle, or you know, uh, an engineer that worked at Raytheon for 40 years and has built their wealth that way. Name it, we've seen it. We have clients that do it, and my favorite part is that I've been taught that you really don't know what someone's wealth looks like from just looking at them. You never know what somebody might have. And so I've learned not to judge people in any way. A lot of times the wealthiest people might walk in with Nikes on and a gray shirt. You really do not know, and I think that's one of the greatest things. And the second thing is, in this job, if you're motivated to be successful, you truly do what you call eat what you kill. And so like if you build and work hard to build your own business, you benefit from that. You're not dependent on waiting on somebody to pay you more or to get a raise or that kind of thing. If you bring on more clients and you're doing more business, you really do control, how much you make and how well you're doing in your career and the types of clients that you get to work with. And so it's like running your own business. And I really, really enjoy that aspect of it.
And I won't ask you to throw a dollar figure out there, but would you say in your career you can get, or in your field, you can get paid pretty well?
Yeah, it's a well-paying field. There's a barrier to entry that, you know, usually firms will pay you a salary for, depending on the firm, 2 to 5 years, and then it's up to you to pay yourself, right? So there's a large, it's hard to get into because it takes, dedication to getting and finding clients and getting to the point where you're self-sufficient. But once you do so, yeah, you can do very well.
Okay. If you could give a piece of advice to yourself, your high school self, what would it be?
Oh man, yeah, okay, I got one. So my junior and senior year of college, I came up with this like goal, and it's just to always, whenever possible, take the opportunity to speak in front of people. Force yourself to do it, especially if you don't like it. It's the only way that you're going to get better. And having the skill of being able to speak in front of people is is there more than just being able to speak in front of people. It teaches you how to be confident in yourself. It teaches you how to deliver your thoughts, how to be articulate. It's probably the most important skill that I developed like in college, and it's still something that I try to do to this day. Is, you know, any opportunity you can to try to speak in front of people or to lead groups, you know, take it, because it's, you know, that's going to be very, very valuable,
That's,
especially if you're a nervous person. I used to get, I still do sometimes. I used to get, you know, red as a tomato when I get called on just in like class, and so I had to teach myself to get away from that.
that's great advice. Thank you.
Yep.
One last question. Do you have a fond South Point memory you'd like to share? Something that was really fun or unique about your time at South Point?
How can I only list one? It would have to be, I'm just thinking if there's anything that beats winning state. Because I had an older brother that played baseball all 4 years, and his team was probably more skilled than mine, but we were the ones that won state, so I can always hold that against him. But just like the you know 4 year grind of playing sports and, you know, baseball and being with the team and building those friendships and then being rewarded for it, you know, my senior year, a month before you, or, you know, the month that you graduate from high school, you get to go, you know, win a state championship. That was really fun. So
welcome. Thanks so much for being here to talk with students today about your career. Can you tell us your name, what you go by, and your connection to South Point?
Hi, my name is Nathan Thomas, call sign Tesla. I'm an F-16 fighter pilot, and I graduated South Point back in 2015.
Awesome. And can you tell us about how you got to be a pilot in the Air Force?
Yeah, so my journey to be a pilot in the Air Force was, I would say, just a series of open doors that led me to that career ultimately. So it just started with graduating South Point. I attended the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs, was able to earn a pilot slot upon graduation, and then just continue to go through various flight training programs to ultimately be able to fly the F-16.
And what inspired you to go into your career, or did you discover it along the way?
I think I discovered it along the way. My college did a really good job of introducing all the students to various career fields in the Air Force. And I think through those experiences, that's what drew me into the aviation community.
What did you major in college?
I studied civil engineering. My plan was to become a civil engineer, but it turns out to be a pilot, there's not a specific degree requirement. So my backup plan, if flying didn't work out, was I was going to be an engineer.
Do you think any of those skills or qualities that you learned in your engineering program prepared you to have the career that you're in right now?
Absolutely. And I'd say it even started back at South Point, because South Point has college preparatory classes. So a lot of like habits, ethics that you develop through high school and college, I think those translate well to not just the aviation career.
Are you still with me? I think we are cutting out a bit.
Can you still hear me?
It's cutting out a bit. How about on my end?
I got you loud and clear.
Okay.
Let me see. Is it back?
Yeah. I'll keep asking questions. We'll see if the recording takes. So what's your favorite part of your job?
Favorite part of the job is definitely being able to achieve mission success with other members of my squadron, or when we have like a good game, really ultimately able to win. That's part of the job.
If there's students sitting there thinking they'd love to do what you do, what kind of advice would you give them?
My advice for someone in high school would be that the choices you make in high school are important. They do matter, but you don't have to do a bunch of work at one time, but rather it's the cumulative effort of showing up every day and just putting in a little bit of work, and that pays dividends over time.
And my last question to you is, do you have a favorite movie about pilots or the military in general?
I mean, the Top Gun movies are pretty good. I feel like a lot of people ask me if the Top Gun movies are realistic, to which I would say, yeah, there are definitely components that are, and then there's definitely some Hollywood aspects. But yeah, I like the Top Gun movies. They're they're good.
And then if there's anything else that you want high schoolers to know about picking a career or just making the most of their high school experience, what advice would you have?
Yeah, I would say enjoy high school because it's a really fun time. Enjoy the time with your friends and enjoy all the extracurricular activities that South Point offers. And then just keep a broad perspective. Keep an open mind when you're thinking about careers. You don't have to choose a career out of high school, but the next big step would be choosing a college that's a good fit for you, and then just keeping your doors open.
Yes, my name is Veronica Kearney, and I recently retired as the DNA technical leader from the Tucson Police Department Crime Laboratory, but worked there for just over 19 and a half years. And my connection to South Point is that my daughter attended South Point and graduated in 2021.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. And so, given that your job in forensics, I'd love to know what first inspired you to go into the career, or if you discovered it along the way.
So I was always interested in science and did kind of discover it along the way. I attended a conference on the University of Arizona's campus for women in science and engineering, and I got to hear a wonderful woman talk about the Phoenix Crime Lab, where she was at the time the director of that particular crime lab, and she just inspired me. I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. I really love science and I love the justice part, and this just seemed like the easiest way to marry the two. And back in my day when we were having this conference, there was no DNA fingerprinting. It was literally up and coming in the early 90s. So kind of getting in before the CSI craze, I guess you could say.
And it sounds like you went to the University of Arizona. And what major did you have when you were a student there?
So I actually received a degree in public administration with an emphasis on criminal justice, and quickly decided that I didn't want to spend 80 hours a week, but I really, really wanted to be in the courtroom. And I happened to be working a part-time job, and they got me a tour of the crime lab and thought, this is what I really like. So I went back to the U of A and got a degree in molecular and cellular biology. So I spent a lot of time at the U of A.
Yeah, well, they have so many majors to offer. So it's great that you were able to like hone in exactly on what you were looking for. And so what is your job like kind of generally? And then maybe also what would be like a day in the life of what you did?
Okay, so in general, what we're doing as forensic scientists is we're examining items of evidence that are collected from crime scenes, and we're attempting to identify any information that might provide us with who may have been present at the scene, whose DNA profiles are on certain items that are collected out in the field. So a day in the life would be pretty varied, but there would be one component where you would be in the laboratory and you would be running experiments. You would be taking portions of stains that were collected, and specifically we're looking at dried body fluids to try to obtain that DNA profile. So you're taking small portions, you're putting it on instruments, you're getting results, and you're reading those results, and then you have to analyze them. So you're trying to determine, is there one DNA profile, more than one DNA profile? And then you are seeing if there are anything to compare it to. Are there things that you can look at, like the victim, or maybe they've collected samples from the suspect and you're going to compare them? If there isn't those, you have the ability, if it meets criteria, to put it in a database that you hear about on CSI that you're able to compare and look at things. Why I say it's varied is sometimes I may be in a meeting, sometimes I may have to go to court to testify about the findings and how I got my results, or I may be teaching detectives about best items for collection. So it is pretty varied. You kind of got to be ready to do just about anything.
What is your favorite part of your job of all the varied skills and responsibilities that you have? And then maybe what's also the most challenging?
Right. I think the best part of my job is sort of those putting the pieces of the puzzle together. And I really liked the testimony part of going to court and telling people how I did my job, what I got, and then allowing them to take that to decide how does that affect the case that they're hearing from start to finish. So I'm only one piece of the puzzle. I think the most challenging part of my job is the analysis of really getting into the nitty gritty of what is in a DNA profile. A lot of the data that comes back has more than one individual in there. And, you get a lot of training and experience to be able to do that. And sometimes we're stumped. Sometimes we're like, okay, I don't know how to approach this. And so, it can be very challenging. Sometimes you're looking at a profile for a couple of days just to try to get a sense of, okay, what does this mean and how is this going to help a case? So
It does sound exciting, but also sounds like you do a lot of digging into specifics as well. So are there specific skills or qualities that you think are important for success in your job?
yes, I would say the number one skill that somebody has to have is adaptability. Things change so often. You could be working on one case and another high priority case comes in and it takes precedent. And so you have to be able to like switch gears and to be able to, okay, I need to now set this aside and then work on this and then come back to this piece that you walked away from and know where you left off and how to move forward. I don't think that is a skill that we really market as an important piece, but it is, I think, the most important piece that makes you successful because that adaptability allows you to kind of ebb and flow with the multitasks that need to happen. Another really important skill is communication. Being able to effectively communicate to somebody what it is you do in the laboratory, what the results are. Nobody talks about that piece. You can be really book smart and very good on paper, but if you can't speak to somebody and explain what it is you did, it's kind of for naught, it makes it really difficult. That's what makes you a good witness is being able to explain. We get training and we're told you really have to communicate your job that has words like capillary electrophoresis and polymerase chain reaction. You have to be able to communicate that to someone who may only have an 8th grade education. So those are important skills. And listening is so important. I think we forget about that one.
Those sound like skills that high schoolers could work on developing right now also, right?
Correct.
Well, it sounds so awesome. I have one more question for you, and that is, what is your favorite podcast or show kind of relevant to your field of work that you enjoy watching or listening to?
100% Crime Junkie. We had I had the pleasure of attending a international conference for DNA, and we actually got to have the host, Ashley Flowers, come and talk about her work and how she supports looking at older crimes, cold cases, and providing funding for labs that just generally don't have enough money to investigate some really, really old crimes where maybe evidence has been packed away and has never been examined, or there is no evidence, and they do a really good job of kind of helping in that arena. And so, I love listening to a good crime story and, what happens and how they solved the case or how they haven't solved it yet and what they're still looking for.
Luke Rosenblatt is a Lancer alum, class of 2019. He's also a survivor of Mr. Holstrom's AP World History course. He was an AP scholar and a member of NHS and the Southern Arizona Student Athlete of the Year. Get that, as a key member of our basketball team. Luke could really shoot it, I can tell you that. After Sal Point, he attended the University of Arizona, where he served as the head manager for the basketball teams under Sean Miller and Tommy Lloyd. And upon graduation, he worked as a coordinator for basketball operations for the Phoenix Suns. He's currently networking with basketball programs at USC, Loyola Marymount, and Long Beach State in hopes of progressing up the career ladder in basketball. So can we give it up for Luke Rosenblatt? Thanks for being here today.
Thank you for the introduction. I appreciate it. I like to think I could shoot it too. It was all I could do.
Yeah, there you go. So first question we want to ask is just reflecting on your time at South Point. Could you describe what a difference South Point made in your life, either as an academic performer or in your profession?
Yeah, no doubt. I think the biggest thing I had at South Point was I was surrounded by people that really held me accountable, and it was like a healthy competition. And I don't say a competition like I was wishing like people were like failing. I just meant that people would constantly raise the bar around me, whether it was academically or athletically. And I always felt like an obligation to keep up and not, try to raise the bar with them, whether I was on the basketball court or if it was in the classroom. I was just surrounded by people who were constantly pushing themselves, and it demanded me to do the same. So I think in order to keep up and try and elevate other people, I had to develop habits that I think have been transferable up through college and then up into post grad life. So I think South Point really prepared me with that.
Are there some habits that really stick out? Maybe something you feel like you gained and it translated well?
I would think discipline, and I know like just the habits that lead you to being disciplined, kind of like getting up early, trying to beat people to practice, always wanting to like beat like Enosa to practice or beating Evan Nelson to practice because they'll be there getting shots up before you, and you want to do that. You want to be shooting when Coach E's like swiping there and mopping the floor because he loves doing that. And then in terms of the classroom, like your AP exams, for like using that as an example, I didn't want to be someone who was like watching John Green crash course videos the night before. I wanted to be doing that weeks before because I knew that my peers around me were doing the same thing. So I knew if I stayed disciplined and watched like a video a night or go through your notes a night, something like that, just sticking with that and just little building blocks that led up to the big test or led up to the big game. So I think that's the biggest takeaway I had from that culture I was around at South Point.
Well said. So talk about how your college choice impacted your trajectory. I mean, you went to U of A and you got into a program that probably taught you a lot. What kind of recommendations, since you went through that decision-making process, what would you recommend for South Point students trying to decide where to go next?
I think it's important to have an understanding that the school you choose doesn't define your college experience. Ultimately, you're the one who defines your experience. It's just important to pick a school that gives you the best opportunities and the most resources to create that definition you'd like. So for Arizona, I had the opportunity to be a student manager while also like pursuing my studies. When I went into college, I didn't know if I wanted to be a lawyer or if I wanted to stick with basketball. And Xavier Farhang, who went to South Point with me, was in the same boat, and he had the manager opportunity, and then he was pre-law, and he's going down the law school route. I chose the basketball route, but we both had those options at Arizona, and just having those options, I thought the school was the best choice for me. And I always had in the back of my head that like I'm the one who's going to define my experience. I'm just choosing the school that gives me the best opportunity to create the definition I wanted.
Yeah. Did you have hiccups in your like career path? Where I openly admit, when I was at U of A, it took me 2 years before I finally said, you know what, I want to teach. I'm going to do it. Did you have similar, like you said, law versus kind of this basketball route? What did that choice look like? Do you think you might change again? Yeah,
I think the coaching changed at Arizona. I was with Coach Miller to start, and then his staff left. And when that was going on, I was like, basketball working in sports, way too much chaos. I think I'm gonna like go down, really focus on law school, try to look at that, study for the LSAT, or do all that stuff, prepare for that. Then Coach Lloyd's staff came in, and they were like a really encouraging bunch, a really energetic bunch, and it was just a group of people I was around. They're like, you gotta go basketball. You gotta go basketball. So I definitely had those moments where I was like going back and forth, and that little doubt in the back of your head, like, oh, maybe I made the wrong choice with school. Maybe I did that. But it's just important to stay grounded because the grass always looks greener. And I even had that at South Point. I'd always think to myself, like, oh, what if I went to this high school or that? Maybe I would have gotten more of this, more of that. But that doubt's just kind of a dangerous thing to meddle with. So I did my best to avoid that. But I think that happens to everybody. But yeah, Arizona.
Those are wise words. It seems rare to me that to have a staff turnover, oftentimes they just turn over everybody. And I think it's a testament that some of you guys got to see two different head coaches and stick with the program and provide some continuity. That, to me, that's a really cool sign. How about now that you're in basketball at a collegiate level and then with the Phoenix Suns, what's a typical day like in the grind? Like, what's the career ladder like? If somebody at South Point right now is thinking, hey, I may not play basketball forever, but I really want to work in sports or sports management. What advice do you have, or what's the best, worst elements of the career?
Yeah, there's a lot of different components that go into working in sports. You can stick to the business side, and there was a business operations with the Suns, which was a more like 9 to 5, for lack of a better term, where like you have set office hours. And then if you're like involved in basketball, whether that's the coaching route, front office route, strategy, there's a lot of different things that go into it. Like there's a flight coordinator, there's chefs, there's health and performance, the medical side, and all those jobs require a lot of commitment. And by commitment, it's like I would try and beat the executives to the office. They get there every day at 7, so I'd want to be there by 6:30 just to beat them, have all their materials prepared, and then you're sticking through the day. If there's a game, you stay. The game starts at 7 p.m. So like you're in the office from 7 to 5, and then you go to the game, and then the games last a while. And just having that awareness that like the hours are very long, and it's fun what you're doing, but it's just a commitment. And also it's kind of similar to basketball or any sport. You can have a game plan and you can prepare as much as you want. Like if that team throws a press at you and you weren't expecting it, like you're going to be on your toes. So just having that awareness as well, that like the day might not go as planned. So just being able to think on your feet, be quick on your feet. And I always equate it to basketball. Like someone's going to press up and you thought they were sagging. It's like, you better be ready. And that's when you rely on your habits. So it's just a difficult profession in terms of hours and just work hours. You know, the basketball season goes through Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, all the holidays. So just, you know, you miss holidays and things like that. I was lucky enough to be in Phoenix where I could drive down to Tucson and see my family. But like Christmas Day, I woke up, had Christmas Day, and then we played the Nuggets that day. So just drive back up to Phoenix and do that. So just being aware of that, but it's worth it for sure.
Oh, this is going great. How about just time being what it is? If there's something you could tell Luke Rosenblatt back when you were a young student athlete at South Point, is there something you wish you could tell that person regarding academics, career? I know you talked about, you know, don't doubt yourself and, you know, this mentality of being there early and out grinding people and stuff. Is there anything you haven't touched on that you'd also want young Luke to know about?
I would say the assistant GM in Phoenix, what he had told me, he always was really harping that thinking is also working. So I think in high school, there's moments where like you think you're doing nothing, but just even thinking about the college options, like while you're just driving to school or thinking on the way to class, and just thinking itself and kind of visualizing different scenarios, I think that holds a lot of weight. So I would just harp on that even though you feel like you're doing nothing, you might feel complacent. Just like, even if you're thinking, you're doing more than you think.
That's another gem. I love it. So you're in your 20s now. I was like I even asked myself this, what do you want to be when you grow up? Now that you're in your 20s, maybe it's shifted a little. Yeah. What kinds of things are you hoping for, dreaming about?
I would say that whatever job I have and whatever position I'm in, that every day I know that there's going to be bad days, and it's whether or not I had a better bad day than a different profession I'd be in. So even in those moments of agony or stress or even boredom, like if I'm still able to find some type of joy in that, able to crack a smile, if I'm driving to work, I can like sing in the car still, then like I know even when the day is like not going to be a great day, I can still find some type of joy in that, then I'll be happy with that, and I'll feel fulfilled with that, if that's it.
I say that a lot. Like my bad days are still really good, and
yeah.
I know I love my job because even my bad days, I'm excited to come back. So those jobs are out there. Cool. How about maybe one more South Point memory or something that kind of reconnects the spirit of South Point that you'd want to share?
I would say it's been a while, I guess, since I graduated. I'm closer to my 10th year anniversary than I was to graduation date. Or I'm the graduation. So I would say that even with my time away, that still have relationships with the staff at South Point, and I have family, like I have little cousins that are still there and all that, but I still stay in touch with you. I stay in touch with my previous coaches, and just that, I think that's cool, because for Arizona, we went up to Israel, and we went to Jerusalem, we went into Palestine and Bethlehem and all that, and like you were texting me on that trip, like, oh, did you see King David's tomb? Did you see that? And like, it was like 4 or 5 years after I graduated. So just to have that and check-ins from you, I think it's really cool. And it's not just you, it's other members of the staff and faculty. I think that's really special, that's still going on. And it's been a while since I've been there.
Those are good memories on my end too. It's a pretty cool community.
Yeah, no doubt.
Hey everybody, this is Brian Holstrom with South Point Catholic High School. And today we're doing an interview for our career day. and our guest is Nia Batanga Inosa. So Inosa is a Lancer alum from the class of 2019. He's a survivor of Mr. Holstrom's AP World History course. And during his time at South Point, Inosa was recognized as an AP scholar and was a member of South Point basketball, track, and soccer programs which achieved 2 state runner-ups and a soccer championship, which Inosa participated in. Upon graduation, Inosa matriculated to Santa Clara University, and he graduated in 2023 with a degree in computer science and engineering, as well as a math minor. He served as president of the National Society of Black Engineers and as director of the Santa Clara Investment Fund. Inosa currently works as a software engineer for Microsoft. He's in Seattle, and he's developing technical expertise to become a leader in technology and finance. So can we give it up for Inosa?
Appreciate it. That was quite an introduction.
So Inosa, first question I like to roll out is if you could think back and reflect on South Point time, describe some differences that South Point made in your life, in your academic trajectory or your professional career.
Yeah, I'd say the biggest thing is probably preparation. I think looking back, I remember stepping into college and starting to realize just how prepared I was. And I think, those first couple of weeks, you're a little bit unsure about like what things are going to be. It's a big change. You're living by yourself. And in my case, it was the first time that I was going to be away from my family for an extended period of time. So that took some adjusting to. But I think once classes started rolling, things started to feel very familiar. It was the same fast pace that I was kind of used to back at South Point, taking some of the AP classes. Same type of like environment in terms of like the culture. I mean, Santa Clara also being a Catholic school, like that also kind of helped, made it very easy for me to like immerse myself into the community and then, participate in all these clubs. So I think the biggest thing is just preparation. I think South Point did an amazing job of just like preparing me academically, but also as a member of the community. I think, being a Catholic school, I feel like it shared the same values, same themes of like, okay, developing you not just as a student, but also as a whole person and really focusing in on your character. So I think overall, those are the things that like, that's what stuck out to me when I was reflecting on like my time at South Point.
How about you talk about your college choice, Santa Clara?
Yeah.
And you've been in the shoes that many of our Lancers in right now. They're thinking about what school to go to and maybe have some apprehension. Right. What kind of choices did you have and why Santa Clara? You already mentioned a lot why Santa Clara, but how did that decision-making process go for you?
I think the most important thing for me was finding the right fit. I knew that I enjoyed, looking back at my time at South Point, one of the things that I really enjoyed, I mean, especially in your class, was the one-on-one discussions that I would have with teachers. It wasn't just me and listening to a lecture for 45 minutes to an hour. I really enjoyed going back and forth, asking questions, and not feeling the pressure of like, oh, I can't talk in this particular instance. So Santa Clara being a smaller school definitely was a big factor. And then the second thing was I knew what my career, like what I wanted to do. I wanted to go into computer science and engineering, and I feel like being in Silicon Valley, like there was no better place to be. And I think looking back and like that, that ultimately led to where I'm at today. So I think those two things were probably the biggest things, just like the size of the school, the location, in terms of like what I wanted to do. And then just kind of like as a cherry on top, just like the culture, like going from a Catholic school to another Catholic school, that was pretty big for me because I knew what type of community would be there. And, as a first generation college student, I knew that I would have that kind of like community support that I had experienced both at South Point and even before that at St. Cyril.
So you led into this kind of perfectly. You already talked about your career, and that's the choice we're really evaluating with these interviews is when you were deliberating over what you want to be when you grow up, what career do you want to choose? Was that something that just popped out at you? Did you have other alternatives you were considering? Do you think it's possible you change in the future? How's that choice been?
Yeah, so I think for me early on, like when I was a kid, I always knew that it was either business or engineering. I feel like I've always been very fond of math. And so I thought, first it was business. And I think what helped me make the decision was just talking to a lot of people who had been in both industries. I talked to some engineers, talked to some people who've been to business school. And ultimately, I realized that going to business school doesn't mean that they teach you how to start a business and you go and start a business and boom, you're rich. So I was like, So I was like, let me focus on like just developing my technical skills. And I think once I had that understanding of like, okay, I want to do engineering, it was more about choosing what type. And I think at first it was civil engineering. And I think when I applied to ASU, I actually set civil engineering as my major. And the more I spoke to people, spoke to my physics teachers, spoke to other engineers, it became apparent that like civil engineering wasn't really for me. And based on what I heard about computer science, computer engineering, it seemed like that's where kind of like the world was headed. I mean, at that time, and then you fast forward, that's been proven to be true. I think technology is like a prominent part of our everyday lives, and I realized that whether you're a doctor, engineer, lawyer, everyone's using technology, everyone's using computers, everyone's using software, and I kind of wanted to be at the forefront of that. And so that's what ultimately led to my decision to be like, okay, this is the field that I want to go into, and then finding the school that's going to like best support me and best prepare me to enter the workforce.
That's well said. I love that advice about reaching out to people that are already in the field and
Right.
Finding out. I think that's kind of the goal of these interviews is let's get a taste of this before we commit a lot of energy and resources going in a direction. But you can change. I also can sympathize with becoming a teacher and finding out, boom, I didn't get rich. But other satisfactions in your job. Can you talk about a typical day in your profession? What are the best parts, worst parts? Like, what's the grind? Talk about your job.
Yeah, for sure. So I think most of my job is probably designing software solutions to problems. Lately, it's also been a lot of data analysis. So I work on a behavioral analytics tool that basically helps like website owners see how users are interacting with their site. And so it's a ton of data that we have to that we collect, and then our job is to basically sift through that data and make it meaningful, right, to the site owners. So a typical day I think would start with a meeting, probably not early, probably like 9 or 10, and then we'll just going over like, okay, what issues came up from the day before, what are customers saying, what are some things that we need to brainstorm and figure out solutions to. And then after that, it's probably the rest of the day. It's pretty flexible in terms of what I do. It's all up to me, really. I try to get probably like 4 to 5 hours of like just complete focus work with no distractions, no meetings, no other things. And that's where I'll look through the code. I'll do some data analysis. I might collaborate with some other engineers. I might have a brainstorming sessions with some of the seniors. And then at the end of the day, I think the last hour, I kind of try to like figure out, okay, this is what's done today, and then kind of start planning for the next day. So that way, when the morning starts, I don't just jump into it not knowing what to expect. And I would say my favorite part of the job is the satisfaction of seeing something that you built being used, or even people posting about it, being in the news. I think that's really satisfying. Obviously, I play a small part in the whole team. We create something and users get a chance to use it, but it's a lot of pressure when things don't go quite right, because there's millions and sometimes in some cases billions of people that are relying on it. But it's a good pressure, and it's super satisfying when we ship something and you deliver something. The parts that are not as enjoyable, I would say, is when things are not working. I think when you get an email from a customer that, hey, my site is doing this and it was supposed to do this, or I used to have on-call rotations where something went wrong. I would just get a phone call. Fortunately, I don't have to do that anymore. But I think that was probably the most daunting part. I think now it's not as bad because I have a little bit more experience. But at first, it was kind of like, I don't even know where to start. Where does the issue begin? But overall, I think as a career, it's been more than I could ever ask for. The flexibility to pretty much work anywhere, to be able to like learn from all these people that have years of experience, and you're really touching stuff that people can see. And it's always cool to like come back home and I can show my parents like, hey, go to this website. This is what I built. So overall, it's been really, really enjoyable.
So maybe looking back, if you were to be able to tell Enosa, who's a sophomore, a junior at South Point,
yeah,
if you could impart some wisdom that you wish you'd known back then regarding school choice or career choice, Is there anything that maybe sticks out that you could give some of our Lancers a shortcut?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing would be do your due diligence. I think
Explain what you mean by that. They mean it by what's that?
Like do your due diligence when choosing the school. I think when I was thinking about school, I think ultimately I made the right choice, but at the time I didn't realize how big of a deal it was, because before that you kind of you go freshman years, things are kind of like lined up, and if you go to St. Cyril or St. Peter and Paul, you kind of know, okay, the next step is South Point. I think this is probably the first time in my life where I was making, and mostly on my own, but obviously with the support of the community, but like this is the first time you're making a decision that has so many variables. And I think you really, I think, like I said, I think I made the right choice, but I think spending as much time as possible talking to people that have gone to those schools, talking to people that are in your field, talking to upperclassmen that have gone through the process. I think that's probably the thing I would advise anyone to do is really do your due diligence, because I think there's so many choices that we have to make in our lives, and I think for me at that point, and for a lot of kids at that point, that's probably the biggest one. And so you really don't want to just leave it up to chance and say, I'll go to this school just because I like their football team, or for other reasons that might not be as important. So just really spend a lot of time talk to folks. Because I'm thinking, like, I was fortunate that my counselor actually attended, Mr. Urbanski, who's also my track coach. He attended Santa Clara University. His kids attended Santa Clara University, so I got that insight early on. But I'm sure there are folks who are similar to that you can talk to. So I think that's probably the most important thing.
There's got to be music to the ears of our counselors that we have. We've actually hired more, and we have 2 college counselors now. So
it's amazing. Yeah, utilize them. I think, like, he was my track coach and we were pretty close. And so I think I spent a lot of time in his office, and, they'll let you know, because they've seen it before. They know what's required to go into the school that you want to go into, the field that you want to go into. Because I was shocked to find out that, like, depending on your major, your acceptance might vary. So those are the things, the nuances that they're privy to and that they can, like, share with you. So definitely utilize them.
All right, being short on time, I got 2 more quick hitters for you.
Yeah.
Okay? We'll call this the lightning round.
Yeah.
Now that you're in your 20s,
yeah,
you've got more wisdom, more perspective. What do you want for yourself in the future? Like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Not necessarily jobs, careers, but like
right.
What's happiness for you in the future?
I always say this. I think, you've already experienced it. I think the best job is being a coach. So I think when I'm retired or when I have free time, I think for me is being some sort of coach, whether that's basketball, soccer, career, whatever it is. I think just being in a position to where you can, like, shape people. I think that's when I would be the happiest. Yeah.
Okay. Last one in the lightning round. Is there a South Point memory, reflection, something funny, anything that jumps out that kind of is the spirit of South Point to you? Something that you might be able to.
I would say the Spirit Weeks. The Spirit Weeks. I feel like we're not doing that at work anymore. I think the Spirit Weeks are always fun, especially because the teachers would always go. A lot of the teachers that I had would always go pretty hard, and so that was always enjoyable. And then I think overall, some of my best memories would have to be the van rides, car rides to sporting events. I think there's nothing like it. And it was a lot of fun, great bonding with all the guys, and really enjoyed it.
It's a special community. Well, we're really glad you were a home run choice for us to get to do this. And so I'm glad we got to catch up a little bit.
I appreciate that. Thanks for having me.
Hello. Well, thanks so much for inviting me. My name is Dr. Christine Staten. I went to South Point High School and graduated in 1988, as did my husband. I met my husband there. And we have 5 children, and our first 4 have gone through South Point and graduated, and our 5th child is currently a junior at South Point.
Wow, that's awesome. You have a big connection to South Point.
Yes.
Okay, so where did you attend college, and what was your major?
Perfect. Yeah, so I attended originally Pima College and the University of Arizona, and then graduated with a bachelor's in biology from the University of Arizona. I then went on to Colorado State to go to veterinary school, where I graduated in 99.
Wow, that's awesome. How long is veterinarian school?
So most veterinary schools want you to have a bachelor's before you apply. So after your undergraduate time, then it's 4 years. Now, some schools, including the one in the University of Arizona, are shorter, and the shortest school for veterinarians is the University of Arizona's veterinary school. We actually love this model because there's no breaks. Typical veterinary school is a fall semester, a spring semester with summer off. Fall semester, spring semester, summer off for 4 years. The University of Arizona, there's no break. So you go through the whole summer. So you actually go August to August and graduate in 3 years. So that wasn't open to me when I went through veterinary school, but it's a very enticing way to go to vet school now.
Wow, I didn't even know that. So they go year round, so it makes it faster. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so what company do you currently work for? And can you tell us, well, yours is not a company, yours is probably a clinic or center.
Yeah, it's a company too, though. Yeah, so I own and work at Adobe Veterinary Center. When I graduated veterinary school, I joined my vet that I had growing up. We had livestock animals. We had goats and sheep and horses as well as dogs. And she was the vet that came to our house. She only had a mobile truck that she brought over. So I joined that practice right out of graduation. So I was in my own truck just driving around. And then in 2005, we started building our clinic, which is on the northeast side of Tucson, called Adobe Veterinary Center. And last year we built a clinic across the street that now is our horse and livestock clinic. So we have a dog cat clinic and a horse livestock clinic. And now we have 5 doctors that see dogs and cats, 5 doctors that see horses and livestock, and about 50 team members that work with us.
Wow. And you run this whole business.
I have a lot of wonderful managers. I've learned that, but I grew it from that pickup truck driving around. So that's been a really fun part of this career, is the ability to be an entrepreneur and own your own business if that's something that you want to do.
And I'm just curious, how did you have those business skills if you went to undergrad for biology and then you were amazing and then you went to vet school? How did you gain those business skills?
Well, I think back then there wasn't internet, literally. And so it was reading a lot of books. It was going to a lot of lectures. It was watching other industries. It was really about self-discipline, teaching myself and being self-motivated to learn about it. But I always had an entrepreneurial bug. At 12 years old, I had my own babysitting and pet sitting business. So I always had that bug to want to have a business. So it gave me the drive to also learn. And I still am constantly learning and growing as a leader.
Yeah, that's awesome. Wow. Okay. Okay. What's your favorite part of your job? And then what's the most challenging part?
Right. So veterinary medicine, you can do lots and lots of different things, and we can talk about that in another question. But for me, I'm a private practice veterinarian. So I take care of animals owned by people. And not all vets do that. There's lots and lots of other career paths. But obviously, I love being around the animals and the people that love them. That is just the joy in my life. Yesterday, we had an alpaca in the clinic with a really painful eye, and we had to remove the eye surgically. And it was just so nice to be able to take that pain away from that animal, but also so cool to just look and see in our surgery suite, in our operating room, an alpaca laying in there. It's just a cool day. Every day is a little bit different. But I think the career itself, one of the things that drew me to it, and I think is one of the best things about this career, is the flexibility to move around. If you do 10 years taking care of dogs and cats, and then you decide you don't want to do that, you can do so many other things. We have lots of career places in industry. So doing research, making medications, teaching people about new medications. We have lots in the government. So our military has a lot of animals that need care. Our border patrol has a lot of horses that need care. So there's a lot of military options. There's regulatory medicine. So the USDA, FDA, they hire a lot of veterinarians. One of my dear friends she's done so many iterations. She worked at a hospital where she saw dogs and cats. Then she moved on and did at-home euthanasia and hospice care for pets only. Now she works for the USDA, and she works in beef slaughter processing plants, inspecting and making sure that our food sources are safe. So there's just so many things that you can do with the degree once you have it, that it makes the career just really appealing.
So it's not always just taking care of animals. There's a lot of other aspects of animals that you can get involved in medicine.
And it meshes over into human medicine. There's a lot of, we call it One Health, where veterinarians and human physicians are working together to keep us all healthy. A great example right now is the concern about screwworm, which is a really bad thing coming up from other countries. And so that's a concern for people. That's a concern for animals. So we're very involved in those conversations too.
Yeah, that makes sense for sure. What would you say are the skills or qualities that are most important for success in your field?
Being a lifelong learner. Things are constantly changing. This is science. Science changes. Being enthusiastic about that learning. Don't think, oh, school's over, I know everything that I need to know. And I don't think there's a lot of professions where that's true, but medicine really has us learning every single day. I don't go a week without seeing something that I've not seen before. And I've been a veterinarian for 26 years. So I think just having that desire to learn is probably the best quality you can have in veterinary medicine.
Thank you. That's perfect. Okay. If you could give your high school self one piece of advice about careers or the future, since we're talking high schoolers, what would it be?
I wish that I had talked to a lot more veterinarians and spent time with a lot more veterinarians prior to going to veterinary school. Now, for me, it worked out. It was fantastic, but I struggled a lot more because I had only worked as a volunteer with a horse vet. So when I got to school and we had to learn pharmacology, which is all about medications, the majority of the people knew half the medications we were talking about. And I didn't, because I had never worked in a small animal clinic. So I think that's really important. I'll also share a story of why it's important to talk to people in the profession. And that is that I didn't think I was going to veterinary school. That was not on my radar. I was an animal person, but I went to college to go to medical school and be an obstetrician. And I worked in labor and delivery for 7 years and wanted to do that. That was my career path. And I changed at the last minute, literally, as my applications were, my interviews were being done for medical school. I changed my mind. And a lot of it was because I started talking to a lot of physicians about their job. And I started talking to a lot of veterinarians and asking really hard questions, like, would you do it again? What's your favorite part of the job? What's your least favorite part of the job? And that actually changed my career path dramatically, having those conversations. I wish I would have had them earlier so that I knew that I would be going to vet school and I would have got a lot more veterinary experience prior to applying.
Great advice. I love that. Yeah. Asking questions, getting involved, learning more about the career before you actually dive into it. It's so important. So thank you. Do you have anything else that you want to say or share with us?
Well, I just think it's the greatest profession in the world. And I'm happy to talk to any student that wants to join it. I think that we have the ability to own our own practices. So if you want to be a business owner, it gives you a great opportunity to do so. And I grew up in the community where my clinic is. So I'm literally serving my community that I grew up in. And that's something that fuels me every single day. And so if you're interested in that, veterinary practice gives you that option. Also, the flexibility that I talked about, you can change your mind. If you don't like exactly what you're doing, you can do something else. If something else excites you or you get bored, you can do that. There's a lot of careers where you can't. You get a certain degree and that is your job. And to move to another job, had I become, and I'm not, I mean, I would have been fine as a physician, but had I become an obstetrician halfway through, if I would have changed my mind and decided I wanted to be a pediatrician, I couldn't just laterally move over. I would have had to go back to school, go back to residency, go back to internships. And veterinary medicine is quick to get into. You don't have to do internships. You don't have to do residencies. So literally 7 years after you graduate high school, you can be a doctor and be a really impactful person in your community.